Live. What's up, guys? Welcome to this week's Industry Syndicate Town Hall, our weekly live stream with some of the biggest names and influencers and leaders in the real estate and mortgage world. And I'm super excited to have you guys today. I want to introduce everyone who's on this call today. So we have Karin Carr from YouTube for Agents. If you're on the real estate side of the business and you've been learning about YouTube, chances are you've been learning it from Karin. We have Gayle Weiswasser from Homesnap, host of the Snapshot by Homesnap podcast. We have Nate Smoyer from Chicago, Illinois. He is the director of marketing at Avail and host of TechNest. And then David Greenspan up in Toronto, Canada, host of Mindshare Podcast. And Steve Kiles, thanks for putting this all together, Steve. Steve is the host of the Loan Officer Leadership Podcast. And so all these fancy graphics and what you're about to see scrolling across the bottom of the screen, that's all Steve. Steve's the operator, so thank you, Steve.
Yeah, man.
Awesome. So let's start out. Obviously, we're in a very strange time, a very tumultuous time, and the world today is very different than it was last week or a month ago. Things are changing dramatically, and they will for the foreseeable future. Let's start with Karin. So you're in Georgia. What are you seeing in your real estate market? And then what are you seeing marketing wise that's really connecting with the local community? Let's just start there.
Well, we're very fortunate here in Savannah that we have not had, knock on wood, a giant outbreak. And so with, a couple hundred cases in our Tri-County area, it doesn't seem like a lot. Unfortunately, I think that makes people very lax. Like I had to go to a final walkthrough a couple days ago, and it was me, the buyer's agent, and both clients. I was the only one wearing a mask and gloves, and everybody else was acting like it was business as usual. So it's kind of weird. We're still getting a lot of showings on our properties. People are still out there working. It's not like everybody is sheltering in place. So that's the good news. It has slowed down for sure. It's slower than it has been. But at least people are still able to work with clients and still be able to put deals together, which is cool. I wish that they would be taking a little more precautions, but they're doing it. But now the thing seems to really be virtual tours. And that's something that I've done for years because we get a lot of people relocating to Savannah from other areas. And so we love to go take 360 videos of a house that's for sale, upload it, send the link to a client who lives in South Korea, for example, that can't come and look at houses every Saturday, and they can watch the video online, and then they could even write an offer sight unseen. And that seems to really be taking off now. So all of a sudden, everybody's all about 360 video, which, yours is probably one of the first 360 videos I ever saw. I think you were, I don't remember where you were. You were out in the woods or something like 3 years ago and put it on Facebook. And it was like, hey, we should use that for real estate. So it's kind of cool that, it took a while to really gain some momentum, but now I'm seeing it everywhere, which is really fun.
Yeah, I think that's one of the silver linings of our current situation is everybody's being forced to adapt and adopt new technologies or new ways of doing things quickly. And those who don't, it sucks for them. But it sucks for their clients if they have any. But it's making us really leap forward as an industry, and I think that's a good thing. So Gayle, you're in the Washington D.C. area, right?
Yeah.
What is it like there? And then you interview a lot of the real estate industry's top leaders. Whether that's individual agents all the way up to executives at brokerages or elsewhere. What are you seeing? Like, what is it like in your market? And then what kind of changes are you hearing leaders talk about?
Yeah. Well, yeah, we're in DC, which is sort of going to be the next big hotspot, or so we're told. So we are seeing, huge decrease in open houses, new listings and things like that. But, market is still alive. People are still putting homes on the market. They're getting offers. So we know that it's out there and it's alive. It's just changed. On the podcast, I talk to a lot of different agents. I talk to people in different parts of the business, and people are just getting creative and like was mentioned earlier, virtual tours, virtual open houses are all getting to be much more popular. People are using technology, whether it's Facebook Live or they're creating their own stories and sharing them on social media. So, people are figuring out how to make it work. There's definitely going to be a change. It's definitely, nobody sort of, and I don't think anticipated how sudden and how big of a change was going to happen. But I think people are trying to work it out. We at Homesnap are working on incorporating lots of new data fields from our MLS partners so that we can get things like virtual open houses and virtual tours into Homesnap and showing in a uniform way that makes sense. So that takes some agent education about what they can put into different fields. And of course, it takes a little bit of dev work on our end, but we're working hard to get totally up to speed so that we can share in Homesnap all of the data that's available on the MLS side.
Do you feel like this is giving you guys a chance to kind of catch up or to start knocking off some of the things on your to-do list that maybe you were just too busy to do otherwise?
You would think, right? No, it's crazy. We have a new product that's coming out from Homesnap at the end of the month. So our dev team is pretty much like on the same schedule they were before. So what it is for my team, so I run communications and business development, and it's definitely forced us to get creative about, what can we pitch? What can we try to get interest in? How can we get attention from Inman or from Realtor or whomever else? So yeah, you'd think like, oh great, I can turn to like the long-term projects on my to-do list. Not yet. One thing we did do really early on, which has had a lot of legs for us, is we did some data crunching, some number crunching, and looked at the cost of running social media ads. And we found that unsurprisingly, there's a lot of people online right now. So there's a lot of audience on the social media platforms, but there's fewer marketers because people are slashing their marketing budgets. Right. So as a result, the cost of running Facebook ads and running Instagram ads and even Google has gone down a lot. So we put out a white paper. You can find it on the Homesnap site. You can find it on Homesnap blog. We put out a white paper that basically says like advertising is on sale right now. So if you can figure out as an agent how to do the type of marketing that doesn't revolve around open houses and doesn't revolve necessarily around your latest closing, but is marketing that helps get your name out there and make sure that people are aware of you and that you're in their consciousness so that when we do emerge out of this, you are still front of mind. Dustin, we've talked about this a lot, like how to sort of stay in your audience's orbit. This is a really good time to double down on social media advertising because it's super cheap.
Yeah, I could not agree with that more. That you're spot on. Nate Smoyer, so you have a very interesting perspective. So you work with Avail, and I'll let you tell everyone what Avail does, but you guys are directly connected to tenants and landlords and the rental market and the rental world, which in the climate right now is probably just nuts. So what are you seeing on that front? Like for any agent who has investor clients or wants to have investor clients who are looking for rental properties, get us up to speed on what's happening over there.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So real quick background, Avail is an online platform that helps landlords, typically those who have 1 to 10 units, self-manage their properties. And so the first thing before we even because we're talking about marketing and what's happening, we 3 weeks ago now, last week of March, we surveyed our landlords and found there was a ton of concerns. Both from their end and as well as even as we were looking at it, we discovered, more than half our landlords didn't have access to capital, didn't have access to credit, whether that be an open line of credit or a HELOC or, a property they could refinance. So they were either cash or nothing. So as far as what should agents be doing, they should be helping their investor clients know what their options are in covering losses. That's probably primary number one. Right there. The other big concern is how are landlords going to work with their tenants? And that was a big thing we uncovered as well. The communication between landlords and tenants isn't happening at a high rate. Only a third of landlords proactively reached out to their tenants. A third said they weren't planning on reaching out at all. And a third were kind of in the middle, like not sure, maybe they would, but later on hadn't done it. And that was prior to April 1. We all saw what happened. Basically, you see the reports, after we did that survey, we collected over 7,000 responses from tenants to get that corresponding side of the story. And basically is that a lot of people lost their jobs, and it's going to trickle up. This is a trickle up effect. And a very interesting point of data we discovered yesterday was, we look at the data from the day prior, so April 15th, we saw a 300% month over month increase of rent payments made on April 15th over March 15th. Well, yesterday April 15th happened to be the day that many people received their stimulus checks. So the very first day stimulus checks went out, we saw a 300% increase in scheduled rent payments month over month. Now that's good news for people who didn't collect on rent in April. It paints a gloomy picture. What about in 2 weeks? Because, what we're seeing about all the unemployment coming out, where they're saying like every week is another 5 or another 6 million people. It's not that that's how many people actually lost their job in that week. That's how many people were able to make their claim. Our survey uncovered 54% of renters lost their job due to COVID. That was March 26th. We're now several weeks later. Many layoffs have occurred since then, and people can't get through to make their unemployment claims. So when you're communicating with your clients, right now is, time to read the room. Ask them how they're doing. Do a real pulse check. Ask them how they're doing. What are their needs? What are their concerns? How can you help? And what can you do for them? That's going to be more powerful than any deal, than any I've got this off-market thing, any other message. That's really going to hit, hit home for a lot of people. It's just doing a real deal pulse check is going to go a long way.
Yeah, I could not agree with that more. We have a unique opportunity, and I think a responsibility to be the lighthouse in the storm. We call ourselves leaders in the community. Well, now it's time to freaking act like it. And what do leaders do during crises? Is they lead. So absolutely. It's interesting that only a third of the landlords that you guys are connected with even reached out.
Yeah.
And I understand that, they're like, hey, I don't want to bug them, or I don't want to pry. Like, I know that factors in, but that's interesting. Like, is it safe to say that this problem in the multifamily market, in the rental market, in the commercial real estate world we're going to see it get worse before it gets better?
Yeah, for some people. So it's going to impact C-class properties likely faster because these are your lower income. They're much more dependent on their job for every single paycheck and every single week's bills. Your A class is probably going to go a little bit less phased. So these are your white collar, your white collar living people who can take their job remote. So you're going to have some disparities and you'll see it in the property types of who it affects directly. But when you talk about commercial, the news is coming out now with the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Plan. The money has run up, so there's no more money available in the PPP. And unfortunately, if you didn't have a fast track option with an SBA lender or someone to help move your application along further, you just got put into the general queue. And that means a lot of small businesses are going to still be wondering, what do I do? Because those who had the connections and the advantages got them early. And that didn't mean that they were the smallest businesses or, the less resourced businesses. I think there was one that came out about a steakhouse that picked up like a $20 million paycheck protection loan. So it left a lot of real small businesses, your pizza shop, your bodega, your, everything store in your town. I don't know what it is, but a lot of those, it's going to be tough.
I have a call in a couple hours with a big commercial investment guy here in Salt Lake City with Colliers International. He's like the senior VP of investments for Colliers. And I know behind the scenes, he's been putting out fire after fire. A lot of these big landlords that have 40,000, 100,000 units, like all of a sudden people aren't paying rent. Like, this is going to start trickling down dramatically through the commercial world for sure. And it's going to be really interesting how it plays out. So as agents, we need to, and lenders, of course, we need to understand the big picture so that we can better serve our clients, even if it's Joe and Susie who want to buy their first duplex to get into the rental world. They need to understand this stuff, and which means you need to understand it. So David Greenspan in Toronto, what does the world look like north of the border in Toronto? And then you're great with marketing and messaging, and how would you suggest that agents and lenders reach out to their clients? What should they be saying to them, and how can they do that?
Yeah, no, it's you look at the market that's going on up here. I mean, it's very similar across, I guess you'd say, all of North America right now. And as you're keeping your finger to the news and what's happening in different provinces and different states, everybody's kind of dealing with a few different lockdowns, different situations of, the quarantining, the self-isolation, but everybody is separated. And that's definitely a big message right now, is that, business has not stopped. There's a lot of regulations around what people can do with regards to showing houses, with regards to, taking on listings. But on the overall, my message to everybody is, look, if this is what you do for a career and this is what you are going to do coming out of this thing, then it is important right now. And I know we just mentioned a few minutes ago there that, marketers have started to quiet down a little bit, but there's a lot of extra noise going on, even in the social media platforms at this point. I mean, you think about these webinars that are happening. There's a ton of them out there. So there's a ton of information to take in. There's a lot of education that people are trying to do, but I believe as well that something that people need to learn from this situation here is, when we talk about prior to things like this, budgeting and planning and being ready and really being on top of your business. This is a moment in time right now where we've seen a lot of small and medium-sized businesses.
I like it. We lost him.
Stop mid-sentence. It was so good. Mic drop.
Yeah. We'll get back to Greenspan here in a second. Do any of you guys have anything to add to that to that conversation, or where Greenspan was going before he froze up?
I mean, there's definitely a lot of activity out there and a lot of noise. I mean, I feel like my volume of incoming email has gone up like 75% since we've all been home, and everyone's pitching content and webinars and sessions and education, and it's great. It's a little overwhelming sometimes because you just to get through my email on a regular basis is overwhelming. So I think the only thing I would add is, if you're creating content and putting it out there, just make sure that it's really valuable stuff, and that it's stuff that they can't get elsewhere, and that you're not sort of using the same headlines and the same keywords as everyone else, because after a while it's just going to become noise. But if you truly have something creative or valuable to add, something that adds a new dimension, teaches a new skill, explores a new strategy or a new platform, this is really a great time to get it out there, because people are just home with literally nothing to do other than educate themselves and try to plan ahead.
Yeah, I love that. We really do have a unique opportunity right now to learn new things, to launch new things. Like if you've ever wanted to do a podcast, learn how to do it and launch it. People are listening. You have a captive audience now more than ever. Do that stuff. Like every time I hear somebody say that they're bored, or they're like, oh, we're just playing another board game or whatever. Like if you're an employee somewhere, I get it. Like if you don't have a business, what else are you going to do? But if you have a business, why wouldn't you be like doubling down? Like it's such an opportunity to just grab market share or grab mind share, like David Greenspan talked about, while so many of our competitors are just laying down. Like we're going to look back at this period of time at the first half of 2020, and we're going to think one of two things. Wow, I'm glad I really doubled down and took advantage, because look at where I'm at now. Look at this giant leap I've made. Or we're going to be like, damn it, I wish I would have taken advantage of that. I wish I would have done more. But hey, we all have choices to make.
I have a question for you, Dustin. I have a couple of podcasts, and I'm noticing a decrease in audience, a decrease in downloads. And I suspect it's because people generally listen to podcasts when they're commuting, maybe when they're exercising. So even though people have a lot of extra free time, it may not be time that's really ideal for podcasts. Are you finding that same thing?
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. And I've heard from a lot of others within the industry that they're seeing the same thing. Now it depends on the genre of podcast. if it's entertainment, if it's true crime, or if it's, coronavirus related news, that stuff is actually increasing. But business related stuff, yeah, because people's routines have been dramatically changed, right? A lot of people would listen to podcasts while they're commuting or while they're out showing homes or whatever. And now that's not happening. So a lot of those downloads aren't happening. There's also some overwhelming stats showing that most downloads are happening later on in the day, whereas before they were happening earlier. So yeah, it's the disruption in routine. And so if you have a business or a marketing facing or related show, yeah, you're probably seeing some numbers come down. I have, a lot of our industry syndicate shows have, and a lot of others in the industry are. It's temporary. Ultimately people are craving information. And once they get a handle back on their routine, we'll see it go back up. But yeah, that's, you're not the only one, Gayle. That's for sure. How about you, Greenspan? Have you seen your numbers come down a little bit on your podcast?
I had Chris Voss on the podcast last week, so I mean, the numbers were still numbers were pretty good there, which is cool. But no, I mean,
real quick. So anyone who doesn't know Chris Voss, that was a big interview. You had a big episode. Tell us about that real quick.
That was cool. Chris Voss is the author of Never Split the Difference. He was the lead international hostage negotiator for the FBI for many, many years. So he has trained at some of the most major schools and universities there are out there. But this is the master in the art of negotiation. So if nobody's read the book, Never Split the Difference, I encourage you go get it, whatever line of business you're in, especially if you're out there dealing with people. I mean, this could come down to, how you make the next deal on the car you want to buy the next time you go out there. This could come down to the business that you do on a regular basis. So again, check that out. Check out the Mindshare podcast. There you can listen to the entire interview from him. But I had the good fortune to share stage. Yeah, I had the good fortune to share stage with this guy back in Niagara at a conference we were speaking at. And one thing led to another, and was fortunate to get him to accept the invite onto the show, which is really cool. Nice. So everybody should take a listen to that one. But on the overall from podcast numbers, and then just what I was saying before, the internet kind of froze up a little bit here, is there's been some good things said so far around scheduling and systems and whatnot. I was sort of getting into that small business, medium-sized business, but in our industry here, as individuals, salespeople, entrepreneurs, it's important that although routine has changed drastically with respect to how we get up and how we go to work every single day, there is something to be said about not necessarily changing that routine so much to the point where all we're doing is adjusting maybe what we wear, where we are, how we are meeting with people. But there is a big underlying message there to say that we still need to be present. And I think Gayle,
his kids must be streaming Frozen 2 for the 47th time. Or is that just my kids?
So is my internet frozen again?
No, you're good.
No, you're back.
Oh, okay, cool. So look, before I keep going, this is about looking and saying, I am going to be here and I'm not going to disappear in the time when this all comes back, because this will come back. And it's important that everybody understands it will come back. So stay positive about it. That being said as well, for everybody who is going out there and trying to put out content in the world, I love it. I think it's amazing. We tell you to do that all the time. That being said, remember what you do for a living. Right? Because there's a lot of different webinars out there, and everybody's using that same coronavirus, COVID, whatever. There's a million of these going on now. So it's like managing even the time around which one are you going to tap into. I think if you can, from on maybe the people that you typically follow, the podcasts that you normally listen to, kind of stick to that routine and keep taking in the content and taking part of the conversation, and then use how can I be the people today? How can I make somebody smile today? It's not a conversation of saying to somebody, Dustin, how's the family? Like, how are you guys doing? How is everybody really doing over there? And just checking in without that underlying thing of, and by the way, did you want to sell your house or do you need a mortgage? I mean, stay away from that stuff. Just say what's up to people. It's amazing. I mean, look, conversations that I've had, and I'm making my phone calls too, conversations I've had in the past where it's like, hi, Dave, because they think I'm going to sell them something, right? Have now gone into everybody wants to talk to you. And then they want to ask you and want to know how you are. It's a perfect time to just say, hi, make somebody smile.
Yeah. And great reminder too, that just keep it at that. Just ask how they're doing and be genuine about it. Because if you're trying to get some sort of real estate conversation going, that's like going to visit somebody at the hospital to check in on them. You know, how are you doing? You were just in a car accident. I want to see how you're doing. By the way, here's my business card. Like, why would you do that? That's what we do when you have to interject some sort of pitch into a conversation, and that does so much more damage than had you. I don't understand it.
And look, it's not easy. That when you're talking on the phone with these people, it's almost like you want to go, hey, if you need anything, I'm here for you. But then you've got to really take a moment and think to yourself, what's the positioning I just put on this call right here? Right. So if you can bite your tongue on that and just be like, look, I just want to call, check in, see how you're doing. How's the family? How's the people? How's your office doing? Whatever. Cool. The minute they ask you how you, and I just want to check in, see how you're doing. Hope all is well. We'll talk to you soon. Bang. That's gold right there. As simple and plain as it may seem.
Right. I love that. Okay, Karin, what are you doing with your clients as far as that goes?
I mean, we're definitely trying to keep in touch with them, but I've never been that person that calls and says, give me a referral or do you know anybody? Because I had a friend like 25 years ago who sold Mary Kay. And it got to the point where every time she showed up on caller ID, it was like, oh God, she's calling to make me buy Mary Kay stuff again. And I don't ever want to be that person. I don't ever want to be the person that when I call you, you're like, oh my God, I can't answer the phone because she's going to try to ask me for referrals. So we've just been doubling down on our content, and I'll tell you, my YouTube videos are way up. So I'm sorry that podcasting is not seeing a similar effect, but videos for me, well, yeah, you're right. Cause I don't have podcasts, but
Not yet.
I've thought about podcasts, but I'm like, yeah, I like video. So I just stick with the video.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool because we do have a captive audience right now. They are sitting around with not much to do and everybody's glued to their screens. And if you have a good message, and like Gayle said earlier, it's not the, hey, look, I just sold this house, or come to my virtual open house. It's not all about the house. It's about the market and what's happening where you live and general topics and maybe things that have absolutely nothing to do with real estate right now, but there are things that are of interest to people that live in your town. You will get views on those videos. You will. And then when this is over, they're going to remember you, that you were the one that was there. I forgot who mentioned it earlier, but like when I was licensed during the crash, and so many people stopped advertising, they stopped spending any money on ads whatsoever because they were trying to save their money. The few people in town who increased their ad spend were the ones who won, because suddenly everybody else is gone and these few people were top of mind. And that's how we were able to make it through a pretty major recession. And not only just survive, but we were thriving and we were doing very, very well in our businesses. And I see the same thing right now. If you are the person that shrinks and hides and says, I gotta count all my pennies so that I always have enough money. And I'm not saying spend money willy-nilly and be irresponsible, but if Facebook ads are super cheap right now, keep doing them and maybe do a couple extra ones too, because you're the only one putting it out there. Yours is going to be the message that people see.
I could not agree more. And along those lines, so Gayle earlier talked about the study or the survey that Homesnap did, and we just shared that link in the comments. So in the comments here on Facebook Live, you could see you can get the link to that where it shows why agents should be doubling down on their advertising. Karin, you're 1,000% right, and I think we've all, to a certain extent, been talking about this over the last month or two. This is an opportunity. So and to Karin's point, don't go spend what you would have spent on groceries to do Facebook ads. Don't do that. Like, make sure that you're good, but any excess money that you have that you can put towards marketing, your dollar is going to go further today than it ever could have 2 months ago. And why would you not take advantage of that? So if you want the numbers behind it of this study that Homesnap did, check the comments, because I think that's fantastic. It's been happening for me. It's been happening for a lot of our clients and a lot of my team members. And it's those that are willing to double down when everyone else is uncertain and scared, they're going to win. they're going to win, or at least they're going to take a big chunk of market share. So it's an amazing time.
Hey, Dustin, another idea. The types of content people want right now, they want to know which supermarkets have toilet paper. They want to know who's delivering. They want to know, which restaurants can you pull up and open your trunk and have the food put in the back.
Yes.
That's what people care about here in DC. They want to know about, like, when are the schools distributing Chromebooks for the kids? So if you can sort of become like the local expert in your neighborhood about resources that neighbors need right now, or, maybe it's senior citizens who need someone who can go shopping for them. And if you can sort of become a clearinghouse of information and a hub, and you can say, oh, I just learned that Safeway's getting a delivery of toilet paper tomorrow, or paper towel, or whatever it is. That's the content that people want right now. That's what they're clicking on. That's what's sinking into their brains. And they'll remember you were the one who did that. So, 6 months, a year from now, they're going to say, oh, that person was really plugged in and super helpful. And thank God they were here. And you know what? I'm going to call them.
I could not agree more. That's absolutely the type of content that you should be doing. First off, we have the luxury of that being the right thing to do today. It's helpful. Okay. People are stressed. They're worried. They're concerned. Like my son's kindergarten teacher didn't have toilet paper. So they were using paper towels and wet wipes and stuff. So, I had to ask, do you need anything? And of course, when you ask, do you need anything? What do people say? They're like, no, I'm good. You have to get specific. Do you need prescriptions picked up? Do you need toilet paper? Do you need a grocery run? What can we help with? Do you need a packet picked up from school for your kids or something? Sometimes you just need to be specific, and people will always remember that. Just take your realtor hat off, take your lender hat off, be a leader. And Gayle, you're right. I've seen a few agents I know, like Jason Cassidy in San Diego, Andy Christopher in Las Vegas. These agents have created these COVID-19 resource centers on their real estate website, and it's just links to where the testing centers are, posts from Kroger or whoever that's like, hey, this is restocked, or Costco's restocked. And it's just everything all in one place, and their traffic's going through the roof, and they're smart marketers. So they have their Facebook pixel set up, and they're building custom audiences of anyone who visits the site. But that's helpful. It's the proof is in the pudding. People are wanting that type of content. So if you create it and you put it in one place that's easy to find and easy to share, you're going to do really well. So
now here's the thing on that, though, if you guys can hear me, with all the advice we're going to provide right now, and for all the times we've heard this already over the past few days or past few weeks, people are out of the woodwork like crazy, right? Pages, groups, whatever. So all of a sudden we've got this mass upload of all this different data, and it all of a sudden becomes that YC. Right? So this is the important part right here, remembering to pick up the phone and call your database. This is your gold right here. These are not doing it. You better be prepared to understand that somebody else is calling your database, right? So there's a big wide world of strangers out there that, yes, you can serve up some value, you can serve up information, and I am not telling people not to do that. By all means, take advantage of it. Yes. But much the same when we look at how can we help, as Chris even said the other day, because he has this whole thing and part of his stuff, and you think about it, a hostage negotiator is speaking to a family member who's got a child potentially that is kidnapped. They're calling up and saying, hi, how are you? It doesn't make sense. They're not doing well. So much the same in this situation right here. Although if you said to me, how you doing? I'm doing good, man.
That's a good one right there. Screenshot that.
Internet.
Oh, dang it.
Hey, listen, man, your kids are in the back playing their switches. I know it. Come on.
Can you guys hear me?
That's exactly what they're doing.
Do you guys hear me now, though? Because I can see that.
We can hear you now. Brutal. I think I'm picking up what David's saying, though. Be careful. Just there's going to be an overload. So you don't want to just be an echo of everyone else.
It's already out there. Man. It's already out there.
Yeah. So, reaching out to your people one-on-one, is going to be a great opportunity if you're able to do that, for a little bit of different perspective for the bigger businesses or the bigger, in this case, lenders and brokers. What we're doing that I think some could mimic is, first off, we looked at probably about a month ago. So it's kind of unfortunate to say this, but, the time you need to write a check is not the time to start saving. So unfortunately, you should have been already prepared. You should have already been prepping for a pivot or shift in the market, probably end of 2018 into 2019. Should have put that preparations into the work if you'd just known that shifts happen. But if you hadn't done that, like aggressively shift your expenses. And, when we're talking about like with marketing, we've been building out what we're planning our org chart to be in the next 2 months. And we just started adding who we're hiring because we know there's going to be a flood of talent. And, housing, whether you're buying or selling, whether you're renting, it's going to happen. It's not like people didn't buy or didn't sell in 2008. The prices went up and prices went down and the way the market worked, but the market was still working. And so it was the agents that pivoted with it. Like if you learned how to do distressed sales and help people get out of the situations they were in, you were moving units. And for those who just wanted to stay top of the market luxury, well, you're probably sitting on listings. So, being able to pivot your business and doing it fast, not being slow, not taking baby steps, but quickly moving. Where does the market need you now? I think that's going to be imperative. Otherwise, you're going to constantly be playing catch up. You're going to be constantly be weeks behind or months behind. You got to pull the Band-Aid off quickly, not just sitting around just waiting things out.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think in a lot of markets around the country, the craziness that was about to happen with the spring market moving into summer, where you'd have 30 offers within 8 hours on a new listing, because that's how it is in Salt Lake, that's cooled off dramatically. But the motivated buyers and sellers are still there.
Oh, yeah.
So in some ways, it's actually a more balanced, better market. It's still a seller's market in most places. The demand is still there. It's just you get much more motivated participants in the market. And so that could actually be a silver lining depending on where you're at. It's not like business has stopped. That never happens. Go look in your MLS. Guys, if you're in this negative mental space where you're like, look, I don't know how I'm going to get any business because business is frozen, it's not happening, I challenge you to go look in your MLS. Go look at the sold, all the new status changes, what sold in the last day, and then do it again tomorrow and do it again the next day. Stuff's selling, guys, and there's two sides to every transaction. Why can't you be one of them? Steve, I want to get you in the mix here. So you're a top producing lender, mortgage lender down in Houston, and you have a whole different perspective on the lending side. What are you seeing right now that agents and consumers need to know from your perspective? Because the mortgage industry right now is like, it's a bloodbath, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot changing. So here's what we're really seeing is that, well, first off, I wanted to just comment about what we just talked about. I think what happens is oftentimes when we're trying to lead or influence people, we may maybe look past the people that are close in proximity. And what we're really finding is this is a time to go deep and build your group of people. Like we're seeing Facebook groups explode. Really more intimate groups where you may, instead of trying to reach out to 2 or 3 or 4 or 5,000 people, really bring that spear and lead the group of people you lead well. Don't try to skip over your audience and skip over the people you naturally influence in the market, but really bring them close. And here's what's interesting, Dustin. You don't have to know it all. All you've got to do is lead the conversation and say, hey guys, I don't know what we're going to do here or how we're going to pivot with all of these changes. But if you'll be the one that starts the conversation, you're automatically leading a group of people that are hungry for leadership. What I'm seeing is there's really 2 camps. When there is a crisis, you're going to find that leadership will rise to meet that crisis, or people will step back out of fear. And here's what we say all the time on the podcast. I love it, is anything we're doing is worth doing. What does everybody think? You would say right, but anything worth doing is worth doing badly. Yeah. And I think people are paralyzed by fear. And I'll give you an example. What if my Zoom call doesn't go well? It's funny. We're trying out a live stream right now for the Syndicate. What if it didn't go well? So what? We're working on great technology that captures an audience and begins to influence the people we lead. What happens if I do a Zoom webinar and it fails and my notifications aren't right and Facebook crashes when I try to go live? I think you got to lead the people you lead well, take risks that are calculated, and be okay with failing forward. So that's a big piece that we're seeing. I love John Maxwell was just saying, literally, I was on a deal with him the other day, and he was talking about one of the things you have to do in crisis is you have to move and then resources follow. And so what we're doing in leading our people well is just take a step. What are the things I want to know? What are the things the people that I'm leading want to know? And then be a thought leader as far as sharing content, sharing that with others. In the mortgage industry, man, we're seeing products change daily, requirements change daily. And so we're just trying to lead the way with communication and explaining why and what does a cash call mean. And, I'll give you a perfect example. When people are saying, why did the Fed drop the short-term funding rate to near zero? How come that doesn't directly affect interest rates right now? They're actually going up in most categories. We're helping shed light to it. We're saying, here's why, because with the concerns of unemployment, that means that mortgage payments are going to be made late. There's a potential for forbearance. And every person who doesn't make a payment, that servicer is now responsible to make that payment. In order to hedge against their cash crisis, rates are remaining high for clients who aren't high quality or aren't well qualified, I guess is the best way to say. So we're trying to lead with information, man. And it's going well.
Hey, you know what? On that note too, just for everybody watching and listening, for anybody who does want to get onto a Zoom or does want to get onto video, but you've always been scared and shy of it, as Steve just mentioned as well, something that's really important for everybody to understand is, being natural, being normal, being making mistakes, that's real life. People accept it. We all do it. It happens with us all the time. We do am I frozen yet? You know what I mean? It's these things happen, but they happen all the time, right? So accept it. Don't be shy about it. Go, you know what? I probably am going to make a mistake. I probably am going to freeze up. I probably am going to flub, but I'm going to do this because I guarantee you one thing. You do it today, you will be better tomorrow. And then the more you do it, the better you get.
Hey, David, well, the key to that too, Dustin and I have talked about it. It's consistency. If you start something,
absolutely,
keep doing it. It doesn't matter how bad it is. Just do it every single week and you'll build an audience. And that's really your spirit, who you're influencing, and lead them well. And they'll share you out to their communities. And that's how you gain influence. I think the deception is this, and we talked about this even in all of our Facebook groups. Do you know how hard it is to get 1,000 people into a Facebook group? It didn't happen. Television's it's an illusion where it's like, oh, they're just going to grow overnight. It is a steady plug and a steady push, growing 10 and 20 people at a time. And so I'd say consistency and just be yourself too. So,
well, consistency is the magic ingredient to achieving anything we want to. Zoom video, going to the gym and working out, eating healthier, whatever. It's always about that. Absolutely, man.
Yeah. I want to challenge everybody out there. So, and I do this for myself because look, consistency is not easy. If it was easy, consistency wouldn't be anything special. Everyone would just do 1,000 podcast episodes. Everyone would just do a YouTube video every day or every week. And it'd just be like, okay, but it's hard. It's hard. And that's the consistency over time is what helps you. First off, you're getting better. Because every time you do a video, every time you write an article or do a post, you're improving. As long as you're conscious about trying to improve, you're getting better at it. And so when you get to that point, when you get to that point where you feel like it's not working and that you're going to give up and you're going to quit, I want you to remember this conversation right now and think, okay, I was told this is going to happen. This is normal. This is part of the process. Everyone feels like quitting. Everyone who's been doing it long enough, who's really successful, they feel like quitting a lot. It's not just once. You're not just going to hit one roadblock. So keep going. And if it feels like it's not working, make that conscious decision. Okay, I was warned about this. I was expecting this. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to do one more video. I'm going to record one more episode. I'm going to write one more post and just keep going, all the while trying to make it better than the last one. And remember, creating the content is only one part. You have to get people to know about it if you're going to do it.
Yeah, for sure. Right. Yeah.
But that's the repetition 100%. Of it all, right?
Yeah.
And I love what you just said, man. It's so much easier said than done. But
Yeah.
that moment that you're about to give up, that's the moment right there to keep going.
Oh, that's breakthrough, man. That's when you're literally about to break through. You just got to keep doing it, man.
And that's the hardest part, right? But for everybody to know, like that is the moment right there. So let that be
Hey, you know what? That's why you got to get a crap group. You got to get a group of people. Like you got to have a couple of group texts where it's like, dude, this is horrible. It's awful. I want to quit today, but they encourage you. And then after you crap in your group of great friends and you guys all throw it all out on the table, that's when you come out and say, all right, we're going to keep going. And so I know with the COVID, I've got a couple of groups like LOs trying to rescue each other's loans, market leaders trying to stay connected to the information, and realtors are saying, okay, how do we pivot and grow in this market and look at opportunity? And hey, last thing, I'll tell you this, I've never seen more opportunity in today's market than I've ever seen. 18 years of doing this, we've already added 4 new team members in the last 30 days. And we are, from last month to this month, we tripled in production and we're on track to triple again. And so I would just tell you that there is opportunity. You got to make sure you're around people that see opportunity and not just problems.
Could not agree more.
Such a good point. I mean, really, you've got those friends that all they want to do is complain and all they want to do is talk about how awful it is. And if you listen to that every day and let yourself get sucked down into it, you're going to start to have that mentality too. So surround yourself with people who are positive, who are seeing the opportunity. You all lift each other up. You all do better. It's really like not letting yourself get sucked into that vortex of, God, this is the worst. And it just becomes a downward spiral.
Yeah, great advice. The common thread here is just embracing the fact right now, just embrace the fact that it's going to be hard. You're going to feel like quitting. It's going to suck. You're going to suck. That is literally the process. That is it. It's those that continue through it and keep going and ask for honest feedback from your friends. Or if you need to vent to your spouse or your friends, do that, get it out of your system and then get back to being productive. Like that's all normal, especially right now. Like we're all about to lose our damn minds. Some of us already have, and some of us never had one to begin with, but like, that's just the world we live in. Okay. Everyone, don't try to hide it. Don't try to like be ashamed of it. Don't like everyone's in the same boat. So if you show that, like if your nervousness or your stress or your whatever, as long as you're not bitching about stuff, nobody likes to hear people straight up bitching, but people will relate to it. If you do a video that's just raw and real and you're showing what you know, what your household's like, you're trying to get work done, you're trying to help clients, but your kids are literally bouncing off the walls, people will relate to that. Whenever you screw up on video, whenever something isn't perfectly scripted, that's the magic. Karin, you do a ton of video, and I know that you do this so well. You are just yourself. If you lose your train of thought, if you cough, if you clear your throat, whatever, you just run with it, because those are the things that people relate to that make you a real, authentic person who's likable, not the perfectly polished news anchor.
I think so. I mean, I try to just be myself on camera. And if I screw up, if it's a pre-recorded video, then I can edit it out. And sometimes I leave it in just because it was funny. But yesterday we were going live. Since my husband has been home, I said, guess what? You've been promoted. You are now my producer of my live streams. And he was like, oh, great. I get to learn how to use software. Well, we don't know what we're doing, right? So I'm using a program a lot like what we're using right now. It's called Ecamm Live. So he's sitting here running all of the controls while I'm the on-air talent talking to the camera. He pressed the wrong button and the camera was right on him. And he was like, hi, and then went back, and people died laughing and thought it was hilarious. And nobody ever said, I'm never watching another one of your live videos again because it wasn't flawless. I think they tune in because they want to see the train wreck
bloopers,
live streams, right? And so they, if I can do it and completely screw up and still have people watch it, I think it gives other people hope that, well, maybe I could do this too. And you absolutely can. Nobody expects you to be a news anchor. Nobody expects it to be flawless. And honestly, seeing other people's mistakes makes us feel better about ourselves so that we say, yeah, I could give that a shot. What's the worst that can happen is nobody watches. Okay, great. I didn't lose anything because no one saw it to begin with.
Yeah. And I want to add to that too. Nobody's watching this. Well, I only had 10 people watch a video, or I only had 100 people. I only had 3 comments, or I only had 100 people view this video. Imagine those 100 people in a room, and you were on the stage in front of that room.
Right.
Is that an insignificant group of people? No. That's a lot of people that just saw your face. They saw your name, your brand, your logo, whatever. They just saw you. Just 100 views. That's 100 people. Even if they only saw you for a few seconds, so what? That is powerful. That's leverage. So don't ever think that just because I only have a few likes, I only have a few views, that those views or likes aren't consequential. And then also remember this, like how many of us have gone to the grocery store, we go to a movie or whatever, and we run into somebody we haven't seen in 10 years. We haven't seen them since high school or whatever. And they know everything about us. They know what you're doing. They know how many kids you have. They know that you just went on a vacation. Like they know that, but you're like, I haven't talked to you forever. I never see you commenting on my stuff. Like, wow, everybody's watching. Even if they're not commenting or reacting, they're still noticing it. They're still seeing it and consuming it. So never underestimate the power of just being on social media. Everybody's watching, and those that aren't really taking advantage, I feel bad for. I'm trying to do more and more and more and more because of the power of it.
Dustin, I want to, if I can follow up with you on that one. Please. So something that when I was a real estate agent, oh boy, that was terrible. But one of the things that I got frustrated with was I was constantly given tips of, oh, you never know who's ready to buy or sell. And that's true. That is true. But that's not a strategy. There's nothing about that that's a marketing strategy. That is a business plan on a hope. And just maybe somebody will be ready to buy. And you could probably work a business or grow a business that way. I heard countless MLM stories of people making it happen that way. But especially right now, as you're doing this, not being ashamed of a small audience. A small audience oftentimes can also reflect a sharp focus. So, I kind of, I give my own podcast crap every once in a while because I'm like, I got barely anybody listening to it. I won't give the numbers out, but it's no massive agent podcast. Okay. but here's what I have. I have the attention of prop tech CEOs, founders, investors, private equity partners, private equity analysts. I have the very top floor in the prop tech industry listening to my show for research, for understanding which way the winds are blowing, who's doing what's new. And because of that, while, there's only a few hundred people in that email list, that few hundred people email list is only the very top of their organization. And that's it. I don't appeal to the middle level managers. I don't appeal to associates and coordinators or people just looking to make their way through their career. It's only the people who are looking to move the industry forward. Everyone has that opportunity. As a lender, you can specialize in your farmland. You can specialize in your multifamily. You can specialize in, whatever, fill in the blank. And as a real estate agent, you can absolutely find your specialty. If it's that 200,000 to 400,000, 3 to 4 bed unit with 2 bath and an attached garage with the potential of an ADU in the backyard, know every single property in your market that has that potential, and you could be working buyers on that today. And just knowing your market and then centering it and really going dead center on that core focus, you can have a live stream of 10 people, and it's extremely valuable, way more than capturing the attention of 200 people who see you as entertaining.
Right. Yeah. The numbers that's an incomplete metric. It's what kind of influence do you have with them, and who are they? What are they expecting from you? Who are those people? Who are those 10 viewers?
I was talking to somebody who was working with Tony Robbins for some time, and she was part of the kind of the tour that they put everything together, and they get everything set up. Anyways, one thing led to a next in the conversation, and she said to me there was one point where he only had, and I don't remember exact numbers, but I mean, if you think Tony Robbins, you think thousands of people in an audience, it's like he had like 100 or a couple hundred show up. It was totally different than what you might actually think about volume. And everybody on his crew kind of turned to him and said, like, this is a total bust. And here's Tony Robbins, who turned to everybody on his staff and said, no, it's not. The people that were supposed to be here today to hear this are here right now. So appreciate the ones that are here.
Love that. Love that.
Thought I'd share that, man. I remember when she said that to me, because it's one of those where, like, Nate, you just brought up the fact of, like, you know, the podcast, right? And it's no massive agent. I mean, I'm the same way, dude. I'm like, I don't understand what this guy is doing, but anyways, because I mean, it's Dustin. Like,
He buys all of them.
No.
He buys all the listeners. It's all bots.
Well, I'm trying to figure it out, man. I've been asking him like the same question 20 different ways, and I'm still just not getting the answers I'm looking for. But anyways, that's another one. But no, the reality is, like, when you look at it and go, you know, my video views or my podcast, whatever, back to what we said. Keep putting out the content. It's consistency. Yeah. Keep connecting with people on a real level, not just through social medias, not through just video, not through just podcasts. And all of us here do a lot of that and believe in it very strongly. Yet there's still a lot of power to picking this thing up and having a one-to-one conversation with an individual and really getting, you know, so-called, you know, intimate with people. That's where you're going to start to build a stronger following. And all of a sudden, more people will watch your videos. More people will tune into your content. More people will listen to your podcast.
I love it. Greenspan, I think that's a great place to end. I think you're absolutely right. Let's wrap it up unless anyone has anything super important to add. Otherwise, we'll be back next Friday. So we're doing these Industry Syndicate town halls every Friday afternoon. We'll have a new group of Industry Syndicate show hosts and industry influencers, I guess. I guess that's what we are, right? Or leaders. And so thank you guys for joining. If you got any value from this, please share this video out with any of your friends, your associates, your teammates, and if you found value, please share it with them so they can as well. Karin, Gayle, Greenspan, Smoyer, Steve, thank you guys so much for being here. And Steve, thank you for organizing this and putting it together and running the back end. And Greenspan, call your internet provider. It's time for an update.
I have never, I'll tell you this, I'm Zooming every day like crazy, and I have not had a Zoom issue.
Just call your internet provider and ask them, how are you doing? How are you doing?
Yes, check in with your internet provider.
Man, thanks. It's great to share with all you guys. So you'll have a good one.
Guys.
Thanks everybody.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
See ya.